The year is 1947. Inside a small office at Toho Studios, a group of casting directors sat behind a long wooden table. One by one, young men walked into the room. They bowed politely. They performed. They begged to be chosen. This was Tokyo, Japan, just 2 years after the war. Everyone was desperate. Everyone needed work. So, hours passed. Dozens of auditions. Nothing special, nothing new. Just actors. Then the door opened again. A young man walked in. He didn't bow. He didn't smile. He didn't introduce himself. He just stood there. The room grew uncomfortable. One casting director asked him to perform. The man refused. Another one asked him to show emotion. The man got angry. He raised his voice. He paced the room. He glared at them. He wasn't acting. He was confronting them. The casting directors were offended. Some called him disrespectful. Others called him uncontrollable. One of them suggested he be removed immediately. But one of the casting directors felt different. He said nothing. He just watched. Because what everyone else saw as anger, the director saw as truth. He saw a young man true to himself. The director's name? Akira Kurosawa. That young man's name? Toshiro Mifune. Toshiro Mifune never wanted to be an actor. He didn't grow up dreaming of movie sets or fame. He didn't study theater. He didn't practice monologues. He didn't even respect acting as a profession. He thought actors were weak, pretenders, liars. He wanted to work behind the camera. But in 1947, angry, broke, and directionless after World War II, he walked into a film studio and did something he didn't care about. He auditioned. That moment, that accident, created one of the greatest actors who ever lived. To understand Mifune, you have to understand that he wasn't even supposed to belong to Japanese cinema. He wasn't born in Tokyo. He wasn't raised in Kyoto. He wasn't even born in Japan. Huh? He was born in 1920 in Qingdao, China. At the time, Qingdao was under Japanese control, part of Imperial Japan's overseas expansion. His father was a professional photographer, strict, disciplined, cold. Photography was a big part of his childhood, an art form that represented survival. Young Mifune grew up in a structured environment where creative freedom was banned and expectations were outlined. He learned photography from his father, not because he loved it, because he had to. Then war came. World War II changed everything. Mifune was drafted into the Imperial Japanese Army Air Service. But he wasn't sent to the front lines as a fighter. He was assigned as an aerial photographer. His job was to document war, not to fight or be heroic, but to observe destruction from above. He saw the machinery of war, understood the fragility of life, and experienced the collapse of certainty. And when Japan lost in 1945, everything disappeared. Japan's empire, Japan's pride, Japan's economy, and Mifune's future. He returned to a broken country. He was 25 years old. No career, no money, no purpose. He needed work, any work. So he applied to Toho Studios, not to act, not to perform, but to work behind the camera as a photographer or as an assistant cinematographer. This was his plan. But Toho had too many applicants, so they held auditions. Mifune didn't want to audition. He didn't respect acting. He didn't really believe in it. But he did it anyway. And the audition, as I mentioned earlier, went badly. He didn't follow instructions. He didn't perform with enthusiasm. He came across as aggressive, uncooperative, arrogant. Most directors saw a problem. Kurosawa, on the other hand, saw something else. He saw authenticity. So he cast him. Mifune's first major role came in Drunken Angel. He played a dying gangster named Matsunaga. He was thin and unstable, but alive in a way audiences had never seen before. He didn't perform like actors at the time. Japanese acting then was heavily influenced by theater, controlled, stylized, predictable. Mifune was none of those things. He scratched his face, he laughed erratically, he moved like an animal trapped in a cage. I don't think you can really say he was acting. He was existing, occupying the space. Audiences noticed, and so did Kurosawa because he cast him again. Their next film together was Stray Dog. This time, Mifune played a young detective who loses his gun. What made the performance special was the fact that it put a lot of emphasis on weakness. Mifune sweated, he panicked, he doubted himself, he felt human, not like your typical heroic performance. Then came the film that changed everything. I'm talking about, obviously, Rashomon. Mifune played a bandit named Tajomaru. His character was wild and unpredictable. His performance was far from polished. It was, I would say, chaotic. Rashomon won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival, and suddenly, Japanese cinema existed on a world stage. And so did Mifune. But his greatest role was still ahead. In 1954, Kurosawa made Seven Samurai. Mifune played Kikucho, a fake samurai, a peasant pretending to be something greater. He was loud, immature, drunk, embarrassing. But beneath that, he was tragic. In one scene, Kikucho breaks down in tears, screaming about how samurai exploit peasants. It was such a raw and devastating moment, and honestly, probably my favorite moment in a Kurosawa film ever. That performance turned Mifune into something more than an actor. He became myth. It followed it with Throne of Blood, where he played a samurai driven insane by ambition. A movie with one of the most insane cinematic shots of all time. And then came Yojimbo. This was different. This was calm. Mifune was confident and controlled. He barely spoke. He didn't need to. He walked into rooms like he owned them. Clint Eastwood would later build his entire Man with No Name persona from this performance. From that point on, Mifune wasn't just famous anymore. He had become the modern samurai, the face of the Ronin. Success changed everything, and unfortunately, it also changed his relationship with Kurosawa. For 16 films, they were inseparable. Actor and director, warrior and general. In his book, Something Like an Autobiography, Kurosawa wrote that Mifune had a talent he had never encountered before, specifically praising the speed of his expression. He noted that while an ordinary actor might need 10 feet of film to convey an impression, Mifune needed only 3. I have to admit, I haven't read the book myself, but according to an extract I found online, that is more or less what Kurosawa thought about his longtime friend and collaborator. Mifune, on the other hand, often expressed deep humility regarding their collaboration, famously stating, "I have never, as an actor, done anything that I am proud of other than with him." But filmmaking was changing. Kurosawa became slower, more perfectionist, and also more demanding. Their final film together was Red Beard. Production took nearly 2 years. During that time, Mifune was contractually forbidden from appearing in other films. He lost money, opportunities, but also momentum. And when the film ended, so did their partnership. They never worked together again. No public argument, no dramatic confrontation, just silence. Without Kurosawa, Mifune continued acting. He appeared in international productions, including Grand Prix in 1966 and even the American TV series Shogun in 1980. But something had changed. He was still great, but he was no longer myth. The era that created the legend was gone. But legends don't disappear, they evolve. As previously mentioned, Clint Eastwood's entire Western persona was built on Mifune's performance in Yojimbo. Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was directly inspired by it, as the movie is pretty much a ripoff of Yojimbo. Let's call it what it is. Modern samurai in anime, film, and games all trace back to him. Before Mifune, samurai were noble and polished. After Mifune, they were human, sometimes dirty, sometimes emotional. But most of all, they were real. He didn't just play samurai, he redefined them. He redefined masculinity, he redefined screen presence itself. He showed that acting wasn't about pretending, it was about truth. As for his relationship with Kurosawa, after nearly 30 years of silence, the two reportedly met for the last time in 1993 at the funeral of director Ishiro Honda. Witnesses described a tearful embrace between the two former collaborators, although they never collaborated again until their respective death in 1997 and 1998. Yes, Toshiro Mifune died in 1997. He was 77 years old. He left behind over 150 films and a legacy that still defines cinema. But the most incredible part of his story is how it started. He didn't chase acting. He didn't love acting. He didn't respect acting. He only auditioned because he needed a job. Because he had nothing else. Because he had no choice. He never trained to be an actor. Never planned to be one. Never dreamed of becoming one. And somehow, he became the greatest samurai cinema had ever seen. He became the face of Japanese film. He became a legend by accident. Thank you for watching.